So Franz is also a sculptor, and this is one of his sculptures, and he has written a short poem uh, explaining the structure and what it's about. So I'm going to read it right now, and then we're going to hear from the artist. Alpha Centauri. I am fascinated by the night sky, fascinated by the great unknown where reality is making room for imagination, a fertile field for an artist. The space telescope can show us celestial bodies that are billions of light years away. That means it took billions of years for the image that we see up in the sky to travel to us. Is the place where it came from still the same? Are we looking at something that no longer exists? The closest star next to our sun is Alpha Centauri, only some 4½ light years away. It actually consists of 3 stars, one behind the other, as seen from our Earth. Hence the 3 elements in my sculpture. The sculpture is unique. One can look through it and one can walk around it, observing the asymmetry, the changing configuration of 3 unequal triangles. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about...
Okay, here is a mock-up or a maquette of Alpha Centauri, the sculpture. This is about 9 inches tall, and this is the actual sculpture, which is now at the Woodstock School of Art, and this is 16 feet tall. The bottom dimensions are 8 feet and 6 feet. And what I want to create is a star with the ultra simplicity. Only 3 triangles, three unequal triangles. Like I said, as one walks around, one sees something different. Oh, okay.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, it's really interactive.
Yeah.
You know, it's much like your paintings where you can flip it upside down. But this is a poetry workshop. So let's take a quick look at this poem you've written. So you said before, and I agree with you, that poetry is about reducing an idea to the essential elements, much like a poem, much like a painting or a sculpture, where it's really just essential.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at this poem, there are a few things where the verbs can sort of be changed around so it flows better. In the first stanza, in the 3rd line, you can take out is making, and you can just put makes. It's smoother, it eases a transition. It's very much just making it pared down. And if you were to read this poem without looking at the sculpture, I think that a reader might be confused if they read, hence the elements in my sculpture, the sculpture is unique. While I agree, the sculpture is incredibly unique, and there are 3 elements, there must be a way that you can reword that. So you could say there are 3 elements in a sculpture. You don't have to specifically say sculpture, you can say in art, in the star, and you can even, instead of saying sculpture at all, you can even relate the star to 3 unequal triangles. That way the reader gets a mental image without having to see your sculpture at all.
Right.
So there's, this is really great. It has that darkness, that mystery, that idea of what is it to be a self in time or in space. Like you said, what are we looking at? Is it something that no longer exists?
Right now I'm thinking about a highway sign that has to be made so that a person can comprehend in a very short time as driving by what it means, what the words mean. So there can be only 3 or 4 words or so rather than a whole sentence.
Exactly.
Where nobody looks at because it's too much to read. It takes too long to read.
I agree. Yeah. It's definitely, there's some great artists out there that only work in, 4 or 5 line poems, and they
Yeah.
publish entire books on
Yeah.
4 or 5 line poems. And same with some abstract artists, you know,
Yeah.
like Rothko, for example, 2 or 3
Mm.
colors, and that's it. And they're like, feel something, and they tell you, you know, they get a point across. So something like that, it's very good for poetry, but you also sort of want to realize, like, you want detail, you know?
Yeah.
It's not just working in generalizations, it's working in very intricate, specific details. And sometimes that may take a little longer, but there are ways you can manipulate words in order to
So
work
the
for
time
you.
has to be reserved for those details
Mhm.
and leaving the rest
Yeah.
away. Yeah.
Like implying some things.
Yes.
Like in this poem, I'm instantly drawn, or not poem, I'm sorry, in
Mm.
this painting, I'm instantly drawn to that yellow pistol in the
Mm,
very,
mm.
in the very,
Mm,
very
right,
middle.
right.
And that's like,
Off
that's the
center.
detail, that's incredible. It's the explosion. And then
Mm.
I'm drawn down to this bottom, to this little curve on the bottom of the flower. And then I'm over here on the right, where it's just, it's a little abstract. There's some great bright greens and teals right there. And those are the incredible details
Mhm.
that you sort of need to put into a poem,
Mhm.
where the entire picture, or the entire poem, is very impactful and emotional, but there are these small little bright spots, and you're just like, oh,
Yeah, as your eye
that's good.
As your eye moves around, you see those unexpected elements.
Yeah. I mean, it's fantastic, and that's exactly what you want to do in a poem.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter, like, the whole poem doesn't have to be like punch after punch after punch.
Mhm.
But if there's, you know, if it's very pleasant to read, and then at the very end it just sort of like socks you in the face, you know,
Mm.
you've done something right. And you've done a lot of things right, judging by this gallery.
Thank you.
Yeah.